Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and I have LD here, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. We want to thank everyone for following us, for subscribing, for sharing our shows, and all of your comments.
For putting up with my
putting up with his, and all of the comments and emails and texts that you guys sent me. We really appreciate it. Keep sharing this, keep watching, have people subscribe so we could watch and see everyone. And so this way we could be able to bring more and more to you.
And where do we stream?
Where do we stream? Oh my God. We stream from my channel, Glenda's Magical Creations, on the Conscious Awakening Network, on the Parapost Network Central, on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, you name it.
We're all over.
We're all over. Well, you're all over.
Yeah, well, so, I cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, you do. Okay, so on that note, we have a great guest.
One of my heroes.
There you go. Who has been in the paranormal field, basically, for a very, very long time, and is one of the
pillars.
Pillars. Oh,
he's a pillar. Whereas I'm just a pill.
Okay, so welcome, everyone. Meet Keith Johnson. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very delighted to be here this evening.
Well, we'll try to maintain that streak.
Okay. I'm sure you will.
So, our audience would love to hear all about you and all that you have gone through and done for the paranormal field. So.
I've been in this for quite a few years, as you know. I've been in it for decades, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I started out when I was around 15 years old. And you have to realize that it was not as it is today. There was not the, there was no Facebook or anything like that. There was no mass media as we have it today. It had to start out very simple, but that's what we did. My brother and I and some of our friends began seriously investigating in the early 1970s, very early 1970s. We'd go to cemeteries and abandoned houses sometimes and do walkthroughs. One of my best experiences was in an abandoned house. Not that I recommend that, but so that was kind of all we had at the time.
Right.
And I wouldn't do that now, just go through an abandoned house. But I was in an abandoned house and I was walking down the corridor. Before I left, I had this inclination to look into one of the rooms. Just something telling me, you've got to look into one of the rooms. I just had that feeling, that pull. So I came down the end of the hallway, looked into one of the rooms. There's a rocking chair going back and forth by itself, madly like that. Really. And just by itself, nobody had been in there. So I hightailed it out of there. I ran out of there pretty fast. Just looked at it. You know, I was no doubt that I was seeing that. Then I ran out. And very, very quickly ran down those stairs and was hyperventilating. But it really convinced me that there was something there and it had showed itself to me. It had chosen to show itself to me. I felt the calling and I went there. I wanted to know why this was happening. My brother and I had quite a few experiences growing up in our house, and it wasn't an old house. The property had been there for some time. It belonged to my grandfather. It was a pony corral before that. But my brother and I were very young, about 2.5 years old when our house was built. And we did experience quite a bit of paranormal activity in that house. It was things from laughter outside the window to footsteps down the hallway, and a woman's riding glove or driving glove, whatever it was, just appeared in the hallway, looked again, it was gone, different things like that. So when we were in our mid-teens, my brother and my sister decided they were going to try to contact this spirit. And they used a communication board, of course. And it spelled out what it seemed to be spelling out was a lot of names, but one in particular was Sylvia. Sylvia came out, and they asked, "Where are you, Sylvia?" It's spelled out cellar, Cellar. So my brother and sister went down to the cellar. They stayed on the stairs for about several minutes, and they thought nothing's going to happen. Suddenly, there were 3 resounding knocks, pounds on the wall. So they figured that was Sylvia contacting, and they began communicating more and more. I kind of myself shied away from that. I didn't really want to be involved in that kind of constant communication, but they seemed to have a friend there. And then my brother was downstairs in the cellar, and something, Sylvia or whatever, began appearing. My brother thought it was me at first, but then he looked closer. It was like the shadow of a woman with no footsteps. He could hear no footsteps walking past. And then one morning, the full-bodied apparition appeared to my brother, and he just looked at it. It was a woman from around the turn of the century. She was wearing like a gray dress, perhaps a pinafore. Her hair was done up, and she looked a little disheveled, just stared at him with an icy stare, and then just vanished. From the waist up, she just vanished. So he thought, nobody's going to believe me. So he did more and more communication with the spirit board. And finally, some negative activities, real negative activities started happening. The board started saying some really threatening things, very bad threatening things, threatening the family. And then it just wouldn't move. And it was strange because my brother and my sister would try with all their strength to move it. The planchette just would not move. It was like locked in place. Bad things started happening. My sister got pushed. It was frightening, but bordering on very harmful. So it was also the time my brother and I met up with Ed and Lorraine Warren for the first time at a lecture they did at Rhode Island College. And my brother started actually participating in the lecture. Ed Warren could see he was answering questions from the audience. So Ed invited him down to stand next to him for a while and do some Q&A with him on the stage. And afterwards, we were invited by a local investigation group, which very rare at the time at Rhode Island College. It was a parapsychology club called PIRO, Parapsychology Investigation and Research Organization. And the name's actually longer, but that's the abbreviation. So PIRO, P-I-R-O. And we became members of PIRO when we were 17 years old. That was our first formal paranormal investigation group, a parapsychology club at Rhode Island College. And from there, of course, we were members of PIRO, and there was no way to get the word out about us, just little publications around the campus and such. So I came up with what I thought was the brilliant idea, just do a little ad, put it in a local paper, advertising our services, figuring what they call us crazy, we just get laughed at. So we investigate things free of charge that are unexplained, and hopefully somebody would read between the lines about that if they're having a problem. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, we did get a call from a woman in Harrisville, Rhode Island named Carolyn. And she was having a lot of trouble, a lot of spirit manifestations in her 18th century farmhouse out in Harrisville, the Harrisville section of Burrillville in Rhode Island. And she asked, would you please come investigate? Would you mind coming to our house and investigate? We said we would very much like to. We met with her personally. She introduced herself, and we got her story of some of the things that were happening in that house. Pretty horrific. Some of it was just interesting, but some of it was getting very horrific. She seemed to be being targeted. Now, of course, we found out that that's not that uncommon when it's that kind of a haunt situation where it becomes like an infestation and then becomes very oppressive. She was being oppressed and she was being targeted. You could tell she really was. So we went to the house one Saturday evening in August of 1973, and we did experience quite a lot of activity there. My brother was upstairs walking along the corridor, and he saw what looked like a cloud of smoke at first. He thought, is there a fire someplace? But he didn't smell any smoke. And then it seemed like it wasn't just natural smoke, almost like he sensed an intelligence behind it. It was just moving towards him, and then it vanished. Now, the girls, Andrea and her sisters, we became very good friends that night. when we met, and her sisters were all excited because I didn't look like I look now. I had very, very long hair, very long hair. I was like 128 pounds, something like that. And wouldn't believe they said, one of the daughters said, "Mom, Jesus is here." It's funny. That's what she told her mom. Jesus is here. And because I had the long, puffy shirt and everything like that at the times. And I was upstairs in the room with them. They were giving me a tour. And then they told me that they were very, very frightened. I could just feel the energy. There was some negative energy in that house, that farmhouse. And it seemed to be coalescing. But they told me they were frightened. I asked them if they had any religious beliefs. They said, yes, the Catholic. Now, there was a window in this room that could not be shut because of the August humidity. Their father, Roger, had taken a hammer and tried to pound it. It just would not move because the 200-year-old wood frame was just too swollen. So they left the window open because it was nice weather, warm weather, humid. And I told the girls, well, you're Catholic. When you're afraid, just try calling upon the name of Jesus. As soon as I said the name of Jesus, that window came slamming down with tremendous force, just slammed right down in a split second. And in a second later, one of the daughters, Nancy, was slapped on the left side of her head. She was slapped so hard, her head went back and she screamed and cried. And they were all screaming and crying by now. And yeah, it was a scary situation, but I also got extremely, extremely angry that these young girls were being bullied like that. So I called upon the name of Jesus twice more, and I told them, it's more afraid of the name of Jesus than you are of it. And suddenly the room was back to normal. It was peaceful. And they all looked up and said, it's gone. It's gone. And it didn't leave the house, but it certainly left the room. We came downstairs. They were all hugging and kissing me. Mom, you wouldn't believe what happened. And they explained to their mother, Carolyn, what had just happened upstairs. So we stayed there for a while. We made good friends with Andrea, the eldest daughter. And now, if you haven't guessed by now, of course, I'm talking about the Perrin family. And that became known as the Conjuring eventually, many years later. But we said we'd be back the next week. In the meantime, we please told Carolyn Perrin, please, anything happens, give us a call. Don't hesitate. And we'll find help for you. And we'll be back too. And midweek, our chairperson, Donna, received a call from Carolyn one morning. She had just gotten in, and Carolyn was very, very shaken up. She had seen a terrible apparition, some kind of manifestation early in the morning. She had just woken up, and there was the stench of sulfur and decay mingled. Something was sparkling, it looked like, on her dresser. And suddenly she looked up, and there's this, I don't know how to describe it. It looked something like a woman. It was in humanoid form, but it didn't look entirely human either. It looked like a desiccated corpse. And strangely, the neck was broken. The head was lying on the shoulder. And it started saying a bizarre witch's chant, what sounded like a witch's chant to her. And then it vanished. Meanwhile, she couldn't awaken her husband, Roger. She was pounding him and everything, and he would not awaken until the apparition, whatever it was, vanished. And we told Carolyn, Donna told Carolyn, look, we'll be back there. We'll be back there this weekend. And we have friends, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who have been doing this for many years. We're going to get we're going to call them, and we're going to get their take on this and see if they can have any advice for us. So Donna did call Ed and Lorraine Warren, and my brother talked to them as well. And Ed and Lorraine Warren said, well, we'll do more than just advise you. We'll come down there and we'll work right with you. We'll join you in on this case. And that's how Ed and Lorraine Warren came involved. They became involved because they came to assist us on our case. And, well, that's how the true case of The Conjuring started. And Ed and Lorraine Warren became investigators there as well.
And we prefer to refer to that as House of Darkness, House of Light.
Okay. House of Darkness, House of Light. Yes. Well, that's exactly what it was. That's an title that Andrea came up with.
Andrea's name for it. The Conjuring is Hollywood's name for it.
Oh yeah, that is Hollywood.
And that's not the real take on it anyway. But
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that was The Conjuring refers to a movie, which refers to the actual case. Yeah.
right,
I always refer to it as the farmhouse. I just
right.
think of it as the farmhouse. That's what I've
But
always called it.
I want to get back for a moment to Sylvia.
Yes.
Did you ever get any historical documentation on who she was?
No, we never did. We never did. And I'm wondering, I'm always looking to do new research on that. We haven't found who Sylvia was, if that was indeed a real person's name who lived there. And see, it's very difficult when you're doing something like that to pinpoint exact names and places and details and dates. It's You have to wonder how much of it is an actual spirit manifestation and how much is it your subconscious just moving your fingers back and forth. So to me, it seems to be a combination of both of them. But Sylvia may indeed be a real person. I'm really hoping to do more research on that, and I'd love to find that name, pinpoint out who that woman could have been.
And then there's our
Obviously,
friend Chip Reichenthal, who, his book is Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth.
oh
But,
yes,
uh,
that's true. That's
so
true.
is that site still accessible?
No, it's not. Other people own it now. We haven't lived there for quite a few years now. That was our childhood home growing up. And however, there was a clergy there that did a blessing. Things got so bad that Ed and Lorraine, of course, they became friends with my parents, and they were over for dinner one evening, and we had a wonderful, wonderful time. A couple of times they were over for dinner, and it was always a nice time when Ed and Lorraine were there. We'd have a nice dinner. And then, of course, they investigated the house. I remember Ed going down to our cellar without Lorraine. He went down there by himself, and it was kind of darkened in there, too. And then he came up the stairs, and just the look on his face, he just looked at Lorraine he just nodded to her and then said, "Yes, there's something there." Just the look on his face, I knew he had experienced something there. So we did contact clergy. Clergy came in and they did a blessing in the cellar. Not the whole house, but the cellar, because that's where most of the activity was happening. And things settled down for a while. They did settle down significantly for a while, but we're getting some really bizarre activity. Like it sounded like a giant walking on the roof at one point. You hear this percussive thuds just walking across the roof in the middle of the night. Just more laughter outside the window and bizarre voices, especially during when the air was energized, the atmosphere, there was a thunderstorm. That's when things really seemed to pick up. And it's did quiet down. However, it did seem to follow us, at least especially my brother. It did seem to follow my brother and let him know every once in a while that it's around. And I've had spirits letting me know that they're around. I have no doubt that the spirit world is a reality. There's a whole unseen realm out there, as you both know, of course, as you both know. But I think you really have to experience it for yourself to really accept. A lot of people have not experienced it, so they just don't accept it, that there is an unseen realm that's just as real as our existence. It's another dimension, if you will. It's right alongside of us, but it's there and it's veiled. Sometimes the veil is thinner than at other times.
Now, how close proximately can you get to the house now? Is it on a street? Can we drive by it?
Yeah, it's on a highway. It's
On a
on a highway in Scituate. I drive by it sometimes. I never stop by to talk to the people or anything like that. I'd be kind of embarrassed to do that.
I understand.
Yes, but
But
yeah.
you can get proximal to the house.
Oh yes, I could drive by it and I could walk by it. Certainly.
And you also said that it followed you?
It followed my brother. Now I have had spirits follow me around. I don't know if they're from the house. There's one in particular that seemed to have followed me, and I don't know if it followed me from the house, but it probably did. It probably knew me all along when I lived there. It knew our whole family, and but my brother has received the 3 knocks. I've received 3 knocks. At one time, it was quite a few years ago now. I was living in Warwick, Rhode Island, where I am now, right where I am now, and it was Labor Day weekend. just around midnight, and I heard 3 knocks on the door, 3 and evenly spaced knocks on the door. So I went to the door, and it was I said a brief prayer before I opened the door, and opened it. Nobody was there. I rushed outside. I looked at the neighbors. I looked up and down the street. Nobody was around, and nobody could have possibly gotten away that fast. I looked around the house and everything like that. So I do believe that was a kind of a calling card. However, I just didn't open the door without praying. I did that very prayerfully at first, and I made sure not to invite anything in.
Yeah, they did move at the speed of light.
Oh, yes.
Now, you're sensitive. Obviously, you said you sense things.
Yes.
Did you get a sense that something was there beyond the knocks?
I sensed there was something that was not good, but I had the feeling it was limited. It was not good, but it was limited. It just wasn't going to barge its way in. It would have to need some kind of permission or something. I sensed it was testing me. It was testing and warning me, just letting me know you're being watched. It's like the proverbial men in black, except you don't see them. That's my take on it.
But it didn't feel like Sylvia.
No, I didn't feel like Sylvia. Not to me anyway.
And do you think you'd remember that feeling if you felt it again?
Yes, I would. I have felt that. I have felt that in other houses. It's a particular feeling. Sometimes it's stronger than at other times, but it's kind of like you get electrically charged. You get a feeling that kind of like a nauseous feeling, is almost as if you're walking into a power plant. You get that kind of unhealthy feeling, but it does seem to be electrically charged. You feel the energy, and it's just something intuitive that something's around, and it's letting you know. It's purposely letting you know. I think they do have to do any kind of manifestation at all. I think they do have to kind of cross a line, so to speak, to move into our, kind of like switching radio channels. They have to come into our frequency to let us know they're there, or do any kind of communication like that at all.
Well, it depends. Some people are able to be multidimensional and communicate with them by going into theirs.
Yes. Some people do that. Some people do channel and they go into theirs. They go into multi-dimensions. A very interesting near-death experiences too. Sandra finds them. My wife Sandra finds near-death experiences very, very interesting. She's never had one, but she's been having dreams, a lot of dreams. She's had some dreams recently where she knows that her parents are connecting to her. She can sense them, she can feel them, and she sees them. She recently, her parents are, of course, deceased now, but she does feel very close to them. She's had a dream recently where her mother was with her. They were in some cabin having pancakes. It was such a relaxing atmosphere, and her mother was instantly recognizable, but younger. Her mother was noticeably younger. And when her dad passed, she began receiving messages like feathers. She found a feather where there should have been no feather. It was suddenly there. So there is quite a connection there. We both feel that there is.
Yes, having had NDEs, I understand. Glenda, what are you on? Like 6, 7?
5.
5? Yeah, you're only admitting to 5.
Yep.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
So you both had the NDE, both multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
To the point that they every single time paddles to bring me back.
I was going to ask you, are you like, is it life threatening every time? Because it's a near death experience, so it must be life threatening every time you do that.
But beyond the paddles, they've thrown her back.
They just push me back.
Yeah,
right.
You got work to do.
You got work.
Yeah, you're not ready yet.
We're not yet.
Well, they're not ready for her.
Well, let me ask you, how do you feel when they throw you back? Would you rather stay? Would you rather have them not throw you back at times?
I used to want them to not throw me back until I had my children. And then I was like, okay, now I got to go back. So I don't care if you want me up here or not. I'm going back.
Now you're very, very needed here. You're very much needed here.
Right.
But I guess before then, you could have stayed where it was peaceful and without pain, right?
Exactly, exactly, and in a beautiful, loving environment. So,
Oh, that's wonderful. That's what
But
I'm
whenever we
glad
go
it's a good
down this
experience.
road, I'm very quick to say
yes,
that it's not an exit. In other words, people that are a little frustrated or very frustrated, you need to finish your work here, or you're going to have to just do it again.
Uh-huh.
So it's very important, regardless of how challenging things get here. It's not a viable alternative, and Glenda will second me on that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Ending your own life is not good.
Right.
You'll
Well,
just
then it
have
becomes
to,
like Groundhog Day, right?
yeah. Then you have to repeat it again,
Yeah.
and it becomes harder. So
Hmm.
it's best to just learn your lessons, grow, and do what you came here for. Go back. You could rest extra. You could take extra vacation, as they say.
Do your
Hmm.
soul evolution, but finish it.
Right.
Yeah. I've never had a near-death experience. I really wouldn't want to, but I've heard many of them described. I had some very profound out-of-body experiences when I was very, very young, very, very young, where it was actually angelic beings. I felt I was and saw them too
Mm-hmm.
with angelic beings. Now this is when I was like 5, 6 years old, and I didn't know what was going on. All I knew it was a peaceful, comforting experience. At first, I didn't even think of them as angels because they didn't look like the illustrations of angels they see.
Yeah.
They looked very big, very loving, very, very
Right.
powerful beings. And I was like, I don't know, maybe football size compared to them, but they would take me places and they would tell me, "We're going to teach you, and you won't remember everything, but you'll wake up. You'll wake up nice, very nice." And every morning I'd feel myself just falling down into my body every single morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd wake up and I'd be ready for school, ready to go off.
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't happened to me in many. That's when I was extremely, extremely young
Yeah.
and impressionable.
Well, you were very, very open then.
I was. Most a lot of
Yeah.
children are open
Right.
then.
Exactly. It's
Hmm.
only life that closes you, unfortunately. Uh,
Yes.
it puts up you put up walls because you know life.
And the dogma.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. My mother, when I was 5 years old. Of course, my brother Carl and I were 5 years old, being twins. My sister was a couple of years younger, so she wouldn't remember this. She was in the high chair at the time, but it was some early summer evening. We just finished supper. My mother began to get choked up. So my dad went to the faucet, got her a glass of water, and handed it to her. She went to drink, and suddenly the water just vanished. However, you could see it bubbling, and it just slurped. You could hear a slurping sound, and it was gone. Now somebody drank that water. Somebody teleported it or something. It was just gone. And my mother was, "Oh, that's amazing. What happened? What happened?" We call that our thirsty ghost. But my mother, she didn't want us to be scared. It's understandable. So
Right.
these things that are happening. Well, it's just imagination. It's just your imagination. But Mom, we all saw it happen. Well, and then she just dismiss it. But
Mm-hmm.
the way parents do. At least they used to do. I think people are in general more open to it now and are willing to at least ask questions and to explore more.
Well,
And
there's still a faction of the public, perhaps more so then, that would just automatically discount that as evil.
yeah,
And so people wouldn't want to acknowledge it or have you guys talk about it at school, or, you know, even Andrea ran into problems with all the stuff that was going on in her house.
oh yes,
People didn't want to deal with it.
yeah. And that always upset me that when her and her sisters went to church and her sister said something to the priest, oh, they have the Holy Ghost. You see, they have ghosts too, and something along those lines. And I guess the priest said, maybe you'd like to go to church someplace else and away from this community. And what a thing to say to children.
Right.
But I mean, the clergy, they're human too, and they can only deal with so much. Some clergy are specialized to deal with supernatural events, and some aren't. I mean, they're all supposed to be ready to deal with the preternatural as well,
Right.
but that gets scary, and that's when you just they're people,
Exactly.
which is what happened in Andrea's house when they eventually had that famous seance there. It was close to Halloween in 1973, and they had the big seance. They had a reporter there. They had two psychics, Lorraine and another psychic. They had more than one reporter there, actually, and they had one young priest, for the clergy there. And I guess when things really got out of control, he was not prepared for that. He was like looking around like, what do I do? What do I do? I've never been through this before. A good learning stage for him. I don't know what ever became of him, but yeah, he was not equipped to deal with something that he obviously was not expecting something to really manifest like that, and for Carolyn to actually go under like she did, but
exactly. And I'm sure it did two things. Either it made him more thirsty to get more prepared, or made him quit.
yeah.
I think we have a celebrity.
Huh?
Yeah, I think we have a celebrity.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Carl.
Carl is here. Keith will help to provide a balanced perspective. The thirsty ghost. Yes. He's the only one besides me that would remember that. Even my parents, though they experienced it, they they just didn't want to talk about it too long after that, because it wasn't the norm. It just didn't fit into the daily norm. And how do you explain that?
Well, I mean, I've served on boards of directors of regional and state mental health associations because of the perspective I bring to this. And, these people you've got locked up, they're not all that crazy, and that's what would happen is, people would get locked up for this.
Mm-hmm.
So, ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. Well, I know people who are going through this. I'm contacted all the time, very, very frequently. And people will be when they go to professionals, a lot of time they'll be told you're schizophrenic, you're dealing with schizophrenia, but not, obviously that's a real possibility, but without even going into the case or thoroughly examining them, they'll just give that automatic label of schizophrenia, mental illness, without being willing to consider anything else, because that's mainstream medical profession, and they're not equipped to deal with. Very few people in the medical and mental health profession are equipped to deal with something that may be esoteric or maybe spiritual in nature. So,
and with that, electroconvulsive therapy usually follows, and
that'll
convince you not to talk about it again, if anything.
Yes. Nobody wants that again when that starts happening.
Yeah. So I actually was asked by the state legislature of New York to back a program that would have consumers sign off on their own ECT.
Oh.
And I explained to them how barbaric it was and unscientific, and said anyone that could possibly benefit from that is in no condition to sign off for it.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there can be some benefits from it, but still, it's not something I would want to have to experience. It's not something that I would willingly want to do.
It ain't a stun gun. Let me put it that way.
Yes, right. Exactly. But there was going a few years. Well, actually, quite a few years from the 1970s. This is in the early 2000s. And by then, my brother Carl and I were members of the Atlantic Paranormal Society, TAPS, led by and founded by Jason Hawes. And there were, of course, before the TV show, I hope people realize this, that there were a lot of adventures we had, a lot of cases we had prior to the TV show. It's not like we got a TV show and then everything started to happen from there.
Well, that's why you guys are my heroes, because you really blazed this trail to a large extent and kind of put this on the map as an actual documentable phenomena.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for saying so. And that's one thing that I'm glad you said. Yes, we did document, especially me. I was always the one recording, and had my friend Rich, who was also a member. He was always recording. I mean, but I was constantly had my tape recorder with me. I don't know how many tape recorders I've gone through by now, but I even now I have to get another one because one I was using is going to its great reward. But yeah, we were in this house and we were called up to Skowhegan, Maine. And this is, of course, never on the TV series. This is years before. But Skowhegan, Maine, they were having a situation very, very similar to what the parents were going through. It was Kevin, early 1900s. It wasn't quite as old, but it was an old farmhouse. And these people were renting. They didn't own it. They didn't buy it like the parent family. But in Skowhegan, Maine, they found evidence of possible cult activity written on the cartoons and things like that, but also possible, I don't know what kind of inscriptions they were, and possible animal sacrifice in their cellar. So they were having quite a few problems with spirit invasion. So they called us up and we got snowed in. I mean, we were being watched over. I was praying all the way for angelic protection because it was like almost crossing the state line. We're in the middle of wasn't a blizzard, but it might as well have been. It was like almost a whiteout. And the van we were in, the SUV, we saw two identical to ours tipped over on their sides along the side of the road, and praying all the way and once we got to that place, we just plowed into the driveway. We didn't care if we were stuck or not, as long as we made it there. And so we couldn't leave all weekend. We were stuck there, but I mean, we weren't going to leave anyway because the family was in need. And we spent 2 nights there. First day was the interview. That night was the start of the investigation. And then, of course, the next night was the cleansing. We reviewed our evidence during the day. Middle of the night, we heard a door slam upstairs in one of the children's bedrooms. It was a guest room that had been added on. And it's like a wooden door just slammed, very, very percussive. And so I stayed down with the family and trying to calm them down. And Jason and a couple of others went up. Our team member, Rich, had his video camera up there recording, and it actually was, coupling. It recorded video and audio. It's saw a lot of, I don't know if they were dust orbs, but suddenly they started coming up all over the place. But you heard the footsteps coming up, and we asked the next day, Jason said, anybody know what time that happened? And I said, yes, I know the time. It was just around 2:30. So we fast forwarded the recording, and all of a sudden you hear Jason and a few other members coming up the stairs. You hear their footsteps, and you hear this little girl's voice say, "They're coming." And then you hear a man's voice say, "They're here." And then they come in and walk around and everything. So quite a bit of evidence documented there. That case was I mean, we felt bad for the family and everything, and we did our best to help them. But as far as collecting actual solid evidence, that was very, very conducive to that we were able to and a bunch of EVP too during the conversation. And like, for example, one of the little girls in the family asked, why would there be spirits here? And Jason said, there could be all reasons why human spirits are here. And I played back the recording and I heard a voice whisper, "I know why. Miracle." So that's obviously something very, very intelligent. And then the night of the big house blessing, where top to bottom, my friend Brian and I were outside, and we went to the chicken coop, and there were these freeze-dried chickens. Some of them were like desiccated carcasses, but some of them looked like they'd just been freeze-dried, standing upright in the snow. The chickens had just frozen like that. I guess they'd been abandoned when the family moved out, the previous family. And we found a deer head in the cellar, but it hadn't been mounted, and it had no eyes or anything like that. It was kind of gruesome. So then we started the blessing outside, and then we started up the staircase and the downstairs room, and then the staircase. And Jason had everybody lined up in front of me because I was leading the blessing. He had people lined up in front of me, and in back of me. And Jason said, I want somebody in front of him and in back of him at all times, because if this thing strikes out, it's going to strike out at him. And the mother of the household had tears in her eyes, and I squeezed her wrist and told her it'd be all right. And we went up and I did the blessing in every single room. We could hear these voices and they're like moving, even though nobody was up there. We could hear moving from room to room, and the rooms were empty. So it was almost like we were chasing something that was invisible, and you could actually hear it going from room to room. And obviously there were multiple witnesses of that. And the blessing, it took, I mean, by 2:30 things were still going on, 3 a.m. And we're just, Jason was, they called him up from on the radio, said, Jason, there's activity down here. The parents are very upset. What do we do? And he finally just goes, chill, you know. Mm-hmm. So I went downstairs and helped them out and continued the blessing. It's interesting. It was in the wee hours of the morning. I asked for a sign of departure, in the name of God, of course, in the name of Jesus. I asked for a sign of departure. Mm-hmm. And it was a few minutes later, all of a sudden there was a 200-pound parrot cage with a beautiful African gray parrot in it. And all of a sudden, the thing was 200 pounds, but it started moving. It started vibrating, and we saw it starting to move, and then it stopped. And I took that as a sign of its departure. So that's the Skowhegan case. That was extremely interesting. And Jason had mentioned that he was contacted by the diocese up there and that they wanted us up there. So that it was a success. I mean, they did have problems several months later, but that's because the daughters were a little older now. They started having, some of their friends over who had been drinking, or they need to stay the night and everything like that. They were adding to negative energy. Mm-hmm. So it started feeding. I would really say it was feeding off this negative energy again. The entity, that gatekeeper, I guess, in that farmhouse. Eventually they did move out, and they were renting it anyway, like they didn't own it. So
right.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Oof, I'm getting chills.
Yeah, we are not fans of the board and the planchette.
Good. I'm glad. No. Well, good. I'm in good company then.
Oh, yeah. No.
Our take on it is that it's basically a prop to focus intention. It's
yes.
the intention that opens the portal. And if you need the board, you're not prepared for what could come through it.
Yes. That's a very good saying. I'm going to remember that saying. You need the board. If you need the board, you're not prepared to
close the portal.
Yeah.
Right. To close the portal. Right. Portals, I find, I don't know if we open them, they're already there, but they're a lot more difficult to close once something's brought in, because you have to get whatever's there out and then close it. And and the reason Sandra and I disagree with using the board is because, well, like I said, a lot of times, I think most of the time, it's somebody's subconscious. You're answering your own questions through your subconscious. However, what you're doing, you're inviting something, at the very least, something to push your hands out of your control, out of your cognizant control, and you're inviting something
permission of your own free will.
Right, exactly. And at the worst, it's actually at least temporarily taking over your motor control, guiding your fingers and everything. And that's why it was so strange when my brother and sister were using it, and suddenly it was like a dead weight. They couldn't push it. I mean, it just weighs a few ounces, the planchette itself, but they were, especially the plastic kind, but they just could not push it. Something was holding that in place and giving threatening messages and everything. I remember my sister said Ted Bundy came through at one time. I don't think it was Ted Bundy, but I think it was like, oh, are you calling on Ted Bundy? Yeah, I'll be Ted Bundy. Because that's a scary situation. So yeah, they're going to use something that will frighten you, or at least give them power. That's what. Yeah, they'll say the devil himself, even if it's not.
Mm-hmm. So people want to see you now. For example, what kind of activities or events are coming up?
Well, we're going to be at Phantasma Con. That's Ed and Lorraine Warren's, of course, in their honor. Obviously, they're
Right.
on, but it's in honor of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Goes on every year, and it's the Warrens Convention. That's going to be at Mohegan Sun, and that's the weekend of the 27th and the 28th of this month, October. So Sandra and I will both be appearing there, and Carl will be appearing there.
Oh,
And,
good.
yeah, we're going to be presenters, and we'll be talking there and telling our stories and taking Q&A as well.
Nice. Very nice.
So you want to meet us, come down, and we'll be there.
Well, there's actually, I believe, a meet and greet with the VIP tickets.
Yes.
They're not.
Yeah. Yes. The first night, there's the VIP night. Yes, on Friday evening, and very much looking forward to that, because we meet new friends and we see old friends that we haven't seen for quite a while. You know, Jason will be there. Our friends Cody and Satori, and of course Satori is Jason's daughter, Jason Hawes' daughter, Satori Hawes, and Ryan Buell will be there, and quite a few of our old friends who we've worked with before. And that's how we met Ryan Buell. We became friends with him because we used to do a wonderful convention every year, UnivCon, and Ryan Buell set that up. And when he started doing his TV show, Paranormal State, he was obviously looking for cases and everything. And he was so glad to become friends with me, because I had known Ed Warren quite well personally and everything. And we actually gave him one of our cases, which is in Syracuse, New York. And the clergy who was going to intervene on that case, do the intervention, was Father Andrew Calder. But I really think he was attacked at that point, because he suddenly had a whole bunch of things happen in his personal life, and his health started failing when he came on this case. So Ryan called us and, please, can you, Sandra, please come down, because now we need somebody to do the blessing, which actually turned into an exorcism, impromptu exorcism, which we weren't planning for. But these things do happen. So it's best to be prepared. We do spend a lot of time in preparation before going on one of these things, because things like that can happen. And if you see the Devil in Syracuse, one of the early episodes on Paranormal State, that shows that episode. And of course, Father Andrew Calder is no longer with us, but God rest his soul. He was a wonderful person, wonderful friend.
Yes, whenever we go out, I always would rather we be over prepared.
Yes, good point. Good point.
Yes. And,
were you ever a Boy Scout, or were you ever a Girl Scout?
No, I'm just a Gemini. I overdo it.
Just a Gemini.
I flirted with it. I never went too far, but I have a very early career in show business, and in show business, you always want to be prepared.
Yes, that's it. Well, that was the Scout motto: be prepared.
Yes,
be prepared.
Absolutely.
Yes. Because you might have to. You're in show business. You might have to improvise on spot for somebody else. If somebody forgets their lines, and you just hope and pray they do that for you in return.
Yeah, well, I spent 23 years at Madison Square Garden. So
wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a lot of improvisation.
So you're quite a thespian there. Excellent. Good for you.
It wasn't all, front of the house, but there was some, and there was a lot involved. So yeah, I'm one that would rather be over prepared. And Glenda, fortunately, is the same. She's a former paralegal, so she always dots her I's and crosses her T's.
Well, you both have excellent speaking voices and a wonderful stage presence, wonderful presentation. So you got that going for you.
So
it's nice of you to say. Usually people tell me I have a face for radio.
Now, you've got an intense face. Your physiognomy.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, a freak show. I belong in a tent, circus tent. Yeah,
I set myself up to that one.
So, yeah. Now I hear rumors you have a YouTube.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do. Ghosts Are Near, and it's our YouTube show. It's something at least I enjoy doing. We have a whole team, our team at New England Anomalies Research. We have several members who work with us on the show, and one of our team members even directs it. And it's every other month. We do one on location, and the next month we'll be inside a studio where we'll sit down and interview people in a studio setting, which I find very interesting when you can talk one-on-one with somebody like that. And we've had some interesting guests, paranormal investigators, authors, and people who have been on TV shows, or just some people have gone through, proverbial hell in their own homes, in the lifestyle in there. We call them, of course, paranormal survivors, obviously. You both
able to get the back shows on there as well?
Yes. Yeah. It's Ghosts Are Near. It's ghostarnearshow.com. GHOSTS and the letter R and NEAR. Ghosts Are Near Show.
And we'll put them up in the comments as well.
Yeah, just look for Keith and Sandra Johnson. You'll find we're out there. So
that's what people say about me. He's out there. And also, you're on Amazon, are you not?
Yes, on Amazon as well. And I have published 3 books so far, and I've been working on another one for a while on practical demonology. Because I've had people calling me up, in the middle. It doesn't happen too often, but sometimes you get the call in the middle of the night, this is going on. Please, what would you advise? Just like we at one time, when we were very young, we called Ed and Lorraine Warren and said, what would you advise? We didn't say, we're over our heads, we need you. But we did, just very sensibly, we're in this situation and this is what's going on. We seem to be handling it well, but we want to know what you, from your vast expertise, what you would advise. And so that's why when people call me and ask, I understand, that they're looking for advice and everything. So this is kind of a handbook to explain what I've been. It's not the tell-all, it's not the only way to do things. It's just based on my experience, like a lot of things I've been talking about now, how I handled it at the time. How I had a lot of successes and did a lot of mistakes. Obviously, it's you learn by mistakes. We did some. This is before it was. You didn't have this mass communication, which back in the early 70s there was no internet. Just the military had it, which is why I put that ad in the local paper. But I really think that was divine guidance. That Carolyn was brought to us. She happened to see it in that paper, just when she was mostly in need, where she had nowhere to turn because she was just being ridiculed by family and friends on all sides. There's not something you could just sit down in a coffee shop and just start chatting to. After a while she could, then it started getting more known. But
when do you expect to have that other book finished in a proximal?
I'm hoping to have it finished by the end of the year, if not before.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm really, really hoping to. I'm really hoping
to it.
And I'll be very glad to talk about it and come back and talk about it if you'd like.
That'd be wonderful.
Yes.
And do you have another appearance scheduled at this time?
Not at this time, but we're looking. We're starting to fill up our schedule. We're looking for tentative places, and it's not always easy because we do have an adult son who's special needs, and of course we have to have his staff be with him if we're not there, and he's extremely attached to us and everything. So we very much function like as a family unit. And in fact, he'll be with us at the upcoming Warren's convention.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he won't be probably at the table with us, but he'll be there, and he'll be here and there, and he'll be in and out. So,
well, we've got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to just throw out there and tease people with for the next show?
Well, there's a lot of things that just say that I'm involved in some really heavy cases right now, and you know what I'm talking about. You can feel the boiling pot. It's starting to boil. You know something's coming, and obviously with world events, things are going haywire and everything like that. Climate's going haywire, but I really feel like I'm involved in some things now. Some one case I'm working on with a special needs teenager that is also clairvoyant and is making predictions, seeing what seem to be family members and making accurate predictions, things like that. So even though she's special needs, she does have this aspect of herself that can see into the through the veil, so to speak. And a lot of heavy cases that people are really dealing with some terrible, terrible negativity that's really overwhelming them. And they're at least they're glad that they have somebody who will not shun them and not just down them, and we'll listen to them and get their story and do as much as we can to help out.
It's very important for the world right now.
Yes,
And
it is.
wonderful that you have the experience with someone who's special needs, so that you have a foundation for helping this other individual.
Yes,
And
yes, indeed.
just a curious question: when you speak with her, do you like meditate and kind of ground your energy so that there's no chaotic or anxiety in you that she could pick up on?
I'm very, very grounded when I speak to her and her family. They say they love to talk to me because it's a very calming influence, and it's very calming influence on the young girl as well. It's a very calming influence. So I try to be as calm as possible, as rational, and just take it one step at a time and not push or anything like that. And most of the time, just let them do the talking and let the young girl do the talking and ask what she's experienced so she can tell me in her own words and what's coming through. And her family is very, very supportive of her and very caring. So that is a wonderful blessing on her side as well.
Mm-hmm.
I ask because I helped establish a protocol in New York where caregivers of special needs individuals would do that, so they don't actually stir up the
Yes, right.
subject.
Well, some people like hospital personnel and medical personnel, they said, this is fascinating. We've never seen anything like this. This is very, very interesting, very fascinating. And the family gets very upset because, she's not a performer,
Right.
That's,
Exactly.
but like the medical personnel, even though they're seasoned, they've been in it, it's their whole career. Some of them have never seen anything like this before. So it's new to them as well.
Well,
yeah.
With that, we're out of time.
I got to work. We've all got to work together. We are so
Yes.
like-minded. We've got to work together sometime.
Definitely.
Well, let's talk about that after we sign off a little bit, perhaps. But
yes.
Glenda, take us home.
Well, I want to thank everyone who was here tonight watching and the chat. I love all the comments in the chat, all the going back and forth.
And thank you, Carl, in particular, for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Keith, for all those wonderful stories about your experiences and how profound they are, really. So we thank you. Thank the audience, of course, all those that were watching, they're following. And as always, we'll see you next week, and we love you.
Be safe, everybody, please.